Hi, folks. Welcome back to the HMA Law Firm. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today's topic is probably a question we get 3 times a day. What to do for USCIS cases that are taking too long. USCIS delays. My case is taking too long. I want my work permit. I need my green card. I need my citizenship. I need my spouse here. I need my parents here. And they're taking forever. Well, we've been doing this a long time, and USCIS has been slow. It's been very difficult, obviously, to get cases moving. So the real question is, what can you actually do? Well, before we get there, it's important to understand where the delays actually come from, okay? Sometimes it's a background check or a security check. Sometimes it's a whole lot of people filing for the same thing, and there's just a backlog. Of course, these days, I'm recording this in 2022, we're still in the middle of a worldwide pandemic. That, of course, has created a number of delays, but there's also mismanagement. USCIS in 2020 came very, very close to laying off almost 70% of their entire US-based workforce. For a time in the summer of 2020, they actually ran out of ink to print green cards and work permits. It was an agency that had a surplus of money, and it had gone into the red by late 2020. So sometimes it's just the management of an agency. Do not assume that because you're dealing with a federal agency that it's well-oiled or that it's going to run smoothly. You have to expect that there are going to be delays. The question is, how do you prepare yourself, even if your case was just filed, how do you prepare yourself for a delay if a delay actually happens? All right, so the next thing to understand is, what is considered a delay? The hardest part about these kind of conversations that I have with my clients, and as I said, I have these conversations on nearly a daily basis, and I think a lot of my colleagues around the country do as well, is considering what is a delay. Everybody knows somebody else for whom the process was very quick, and they might know somebody else for whom the process was very slow. But no two cases are alike. There might be something that's different in that person's case you heard about, or the processing time was different when they filed, because processing times do change over time. Sometimes work permits, I remember days when I've gotten work permits approved in less than 30 days. And we have other ones that were filed at the beginning of the pandemic that took nearly a year. So if there's anything that's predictable about this process or about predicting delays, it's the fact that it's unpredictable. So the main thing to understand is what is actually considered a delay. USCIS, as many of you probably know, posts their processing times on their website. So you can look at the type of form that you filed, find out which service center it was in, select those from the menu options on the USCIS website, and it'll tell you, hey, we're currently processing these in 10 months to 20 months to 30 months. It'll give you sort of an estimate. Sometimes USCIS actually processes them faster, and that does happen from time to time. And I will say, credit where credit is due, cases do seem to be moving better in 2022 than they were in 2021. And 2021 was an improvement over 2020, which was like a black hole. But we still have a long way to go to even get it to any semblance of normalcy. So while things do seem to be improving, you will find a lot of cases that are just going to be stuck for whatever reason. The important thing to understand is, why is it stuck? If it's simply, and the majority of cases is going to be simply a backlog, and it's just stuck in some service center somewhere and they just haven't gotten to it, that is a very common, possibly the most common reason. but sometimes it might be something in your actual immigration case, something else that's popped up. And it might be something that you didn't even think was relevant. Maybe there was a letter that was sent. Maybe that something popped up in a background check. Maybe you forgot that you had an old immigration file from the 1980s or 1990s. Maybe two different A numbers or non-citizen numbers were assigned to you, and that has to be resolved. There's a lot of things that could happen behind the scenes that you may or may not be aware of that can cause some of these delays. So if you can file perhaps and collect your old immigration documents, take them to a lawyer. We're happy to help on situations like this to try to figure out what could be causing the delay. All right, we won't necessarily get an answer, but at least we can spot check it and see whether anything jumps out at us. That's sort of the first step. The next thing is, if you're still within the normal processing time from USCIS, if you're still within that, then it's very difficult, if not impossible, to do any sort of meaningful follow-up with USCIS. They'll say, look, we told you that the processing time was going to take 12 to 24 months. You're calling it month 3. Your case has only been pending for 3 months. Sorry, you have to sit back, get in line, and wait. And if that is the case, more likely than not, there's not much that anyone else is going to be able to do for you. Believe me, I wish I had a magic wand to be able to push cases through somehow. But that anybody who says that they can do that is selling something. So you have to make sure before you do any sort of more aggressive follow-up on your delayed case, you have to make sure that it's actually outside of the processing time. And I guess a corollary to all that is always make sure that you have a copy of whatever you sent to USCIS. Do not file anything with any government agency without keeping 2 things. 1, an exact copy of what you actually submitted, and 2, proof that you actually sent it. Do not just drop it in the regular first-class mail, because there's no way of actually tracking it. Even if it gets there and you get the receipt notice, you want to be able to show where and when it was sent. So use an overnight courier, or if you don't want to pay that much, then send it by priority mail or some other type of mail where you can track it, if you're not, of course, filing online. So if the case is if you have an actual emergency, okay, a life or death emergency of yours or an immediate relative defined as a spouse or a parent or a brother or a sister, under certain circumstances, you can request an expedite. Or if you're about to lose a job or something like that, or you have a child who's about to age out and will not longer be able to immigrate with you, some other type of emergency, then it may qualify to actually be expedited. These days, even expedites can take a long time, but you want to make sure that you collect whatever evidence you need to be able to show that you qualify for that expedite, and send in the request, as mentioned before, with a copy and showing proof of how you sent it, so that you can track it if you need to call USCIS. It's also a good idea to become familiar with the USCIS customer service number, 1-800-375-5283. I kind of find it amusing that they call it a customer service number, because to me, if you're a customer and you don't like the way they're doing business, then you should be able to take your business elsewhere. But here we're talking about USCIS. Where else are you going to go? Anyway, what happens after your case is outside of processing times? Well, once it falls outside of the posted processing times, that's when you can start doing some follow-up. USCIS does have an e-request tool where you can use to make some minor changes, and this is different from filing a change of address. A change of address is filed on Form AR11, but if you have a change that needs to be made, or you want to file a request for a case that's outside of processing time, the easiest thing to do is to make an e-request, service request on the USCIS website. Now, a lot of people say, well, I tried that and they didn't get back in touch with me, or they told me they would come back to me in 30 days or 60 days or whatever, and I never got a response. Or I got a response and it basically said, sit down and wait, I can't do anything. Well, I'm going to explain, if you stay with me till the end of the video, we're going to understand exactly why it's important to go through these steps, even if the answer you get is completely meaningless. Okay, so stay with me here. Once you do the e-request, you can do that either online or you can call the 1-800 customer service number, wait on hold for a long time, and you can get a reference number and file a request and say, hey, my case is taking a long time. It's outside of the normal processing time. I want you to look into it. They will get back to you within a certain period of time. Might be 30 days, might be 60 days, whatever, or you might not get a response at all. That's unfortunately very common as well. The point is, you want to make sure that you document it. If you nothing else, at least write it down on a sheet of paper or on your phone or on a notepad somewhere that, hey, on February 17th, at 5 p.m., I called USCIS, and this was the reference number that I got, and this was the officer's number that I spoke to, and this is what happened. This is what they told me. All right? Every time you follow up or interact with the government in any way, make a record of it. Okay? Believe me, it will make the job a lot easier if we have to get to the last stage, which I'll talk about at the end of towards the end of the video. All right. Once you've done that initial request, maybe it'll work. Maybe it'll ping the right people at USCIS and your case will come through. If so, great. If not, you have a couple of different options. If the e-request comes back and it's totally meaningless or you don't get a response, you can escalate that either to another level officer at USCIS, or you can file a request with the USCIS ombudsman. Now, that is a separate office that was created back in 2003. It's not a part of USCIS. It oversees USCIS. And so the officers at the ombudsman's office are empowered to actually do, to look into stuck cases and try to resolve them. They do tend to be much more responsive, and you are likely to get a better result, a better information or better insight as to what the delay is. It might be the simple reason that they're just backlogged or insufficient resources, whatever it is. At least you'll know something. So there's a form that you can fill out and you can do the ombudsman's request online. One of the prerequisites of an ombudsman request is that you have to have done a USCIS request first and gone nowhere. So you can't just jump to these other options that I'm talking about now and we'll be talking about. You have to have gone through the USCIS thing first. So I hope you're starting to get the picture why it's important to do these as soon as the case falls outside of processing times, because every single aggressive follow-up that you need to do, that you're going to do, is going to require you to follow a certain procedure. All right. Another option you have, and you should not be doing these at the same time. If you're going to do the ombudsman request, stick with that. Another option is to contact your congressman or congressperson. Every congressperson has a service to offer help with a federal agency. Because USCIS inquiries are so common, many Congress people on their websites will have a separate section for immigration help. A lot of my clients have questions about this because they say, well, clearly I'm not a US citizen. Why would a congressperson help me? Well, they do. Every single Congress office has a liaison, an immigration liaison, and these folks actually have the inside track to reach out to USCIS and find out, in many cases, what's going on. While you're preparing for your civics test, you will, of course, learn, if you don't already, that you will have a representative in the House of Representatives in Congress, and you have 2 senators in the state. So you have a choice of 3, either 2 senators or 1 representative that you can contact. I will remind you, these are federal Congress people that we're talking about, not your state legislators, okay? So you want to reach out to either your representative who represents your district where you live, in whatever state you live in, or to either one of your two senators. Here is where it can be helpful. Not all offices provide the same level of service. It can be very beneficial to have a little bit of knowledge about who is more likely to be able to push something through and get some more information for you. Contact us, we'll be happy to help to the extent that we can. So that's another option. If you have an attorney who is also a member of the American Immigration Lawyers Association, another option we have is to file a liaison inquiry with AILA, the American Immigration Lawyers Association. They also have sort of the inside track to be able to penetrate through to the inner workings of USCIS and try to find out what's going on. The important thing though, like I said, don't do this scattershot technique where you're doing the ombudsman request and contacting your representative and your senators and doing an AILA liaison. These services are not meant to be overwhelmed, and we don't want to overuse them, because if we do that, they might go away. And if in any case, if a congressman finds out that his another congressman is doing the same inquiry for the same case, and they will find out because it's going to go to the same person inside USCIS, they're not going to be able to help you. So don't do that. Use it sparingly. Use it wisely. Don't abuse the privilege. Sometimes this is where it ends, and you actually get some meaningful information, and or it might unstick the case. And you get your green card, or you get a request for evidence, or you see something else that indicates that the case is moving forward. What to do if your case is still stuck? Well, if you don't have an attorney by this point, now's the time where you really, really need to talk to somebody and figure out what's going on. By this point, you filed the e-inquiry, filed USCIS, you've filed a request with the congressman or with the ombudsman's office or with the AILA liaison, and you've gotten nowhere. And it's 6 months or 8 months later, you've got no more information than you did when the case started, and your case is still pending. And now the stakes are even higher because you're separated from your loved one, or you can't get that job that you need, or what have you. What do you do now? Well, like I said at the beginning, there are a number of different reasons why your case might be stuck. And the most common reason is simply backlogs and mismanagement at the agency. But here's where it's really important to understand and be absolutely forthright. And anything that you tell an attorney is absolutely privileged, is absolutely confidential, cannot be revealed to any government agency by the attorney. If there is anything in your background that you don't know whether it's relevant or not, or you want to be able to talk to somebody in a safe space to find out what's going on, now's your time to have a consult with an attorney, okay? And rest assured, private immigration attorneys or advocates that you speak to, or anybody who is a lawyer who actually has a license to practice law, is duty bound by law to have confidential conversations where their clients can tell them whatever they want and not have it used against them. Lawyers like me, we do not report to the government. We cannot say anything to any government agency. Everything that you tell us is absolutely confidential and protected and privileged. So, but that might not be the case. You might still be scratching your head wondering, I have done everything right. I've paid my taxes. I go to work. I haven't even gotten a parking ticket, and they're still treating me like this. What is going on? Well, I promised I would tell you towards the end of the video, the most powerful option that we have, where you have to go through all of these other steps that I've talked about. I should say, if the congressman inquiry doesn't go anywhere, you can then afterwards go to the ombudsman's office. You just can't do all of these options, these intermediate options at the same time, but you can do them consecutively, one after the other. So, and in the meantime, you can file another inquiry with USCIS too, if you want to. And again, you're not doing it necessarily because you think they're going to give you a meaningful response. You're doing it because of this last step. And that is what we call filing a writ of mandamus. What does that mean? Suing USCIS in a court of law, in federal court, to force them to make a decision on your case. Now, this is not for everyone, right? It's not an option for everyone. If there's something in your case that might cause it to be denied, or issued a notice of intent to deny or something like that, probably don't want to sue them, because that's just going to hasten the decision denying your case. But in certain circumstances, for the right type of case with the right history, suing them under a law called the Administrative Procedures Act, or APA, which basically says that when the government says that it's going to do something and takes your money to be able to do it, then they have to make a decision within a reasonable period of time. What is reasonable? Well, there's no real law on that. There's not a whole lot of guidance on that. There is some, but not a whole lot. So it's going to vary from case to case. Some people have been waiting for years. I have cases that were stuck in processing for 10 or 12 years, and we finally sued in order to get them to make a decision. We have other cases pending for 5 years, pending for 3 years, and sometimes even for a year or so outside of processing times. So there's no set time period. Many attorneys have sort of a 2-year rule, but make exceptions for certain types of cases. It all just depends. But if you have gone through the e-request, calling USCIS, the ombudsman, a congressional inquiry, a liaison, or any combination of these things, and you're still no closer to a decision than you were at the beginning, have a consult, talk to a lawyer about your case, and see what else can be done. Now, these lawsuits, a writ of mandamus, work in a pretty curious way, because very few of them actually make it to a hearing or to a decision by a judge. Having a lawsuit filed and pending, all right, will mean, once you've sued the relevant agencies, will mean that the government has an attorney representing them who now your attorney can connect with. Now you got a phone call you can make. Now you've got an email that you can send and see what's going on. You have a way to try to settle the case without actually having to go to court. And if there is a problem in your case that was causing the case to be delayed, maybe it was a notification, maybe it was a suspicion of fraud, maybe it was something else that just comes out of left field and takes you by surprise, well, you're not going to solve that problem unless you know what that problem is. So it can be scary, and it's not for everyone, as I said. But for the right type of case, and this is a conversation you can safely have with your attorney, for the right kind of case, having that access and being able to unstick the case by dragging it out of the agency and in front of a federal judge can be a very powerful tool to get some movement on a stuck case. So like I said, it's not for everyone, but we have a lot of experience at our firm filing these types of cases, and I wouldn't be talking about it as sort of a last option unless I knew that it had the potential in many cases to work. So I want to be measured about it. I want to be careful about it. I don't want to say that, hey, you file a writ of mandamus and you'll be guaranteed. No, that's not how this works. We're very careful with the types of cases that we take, but it is an option for those of you who are able to, who have the right kind of case and want to proceed. And by the way, a lot of people think that they want to do it, but then they hear the word sue the government. Oh my God, no, that's scary. I don't want to do that. They're going to come after me. The government gets sued every day, right? This is really just a way for you to knock on the door and demand an actual response. You're not asking for anything that you're not entitled to. After all, if you filed for your green card, if you filed for your citizenship, you paid a filing fee. That's a fee for service that you're entitled to an answer to. And as I've told many clients, it's almost like the worst thing is not the prospect of a denial. The worst thing is being left hanging for years and years and years on end. Not knowing what to do, it stops your plans. You can't make long-term plans. If you want to travel, if you want to find a new job, if you want to do it, all of that stuff gets on hold because of a pending immigration case. We understand that at our firm, and we see the frustration, and we live by the words that the achievement of prosperity is a human right, and government incompetence or slowness or inability to timely adjudicate a claim stands in the way of that prosperity. So demand what's yours. Don't be afraid. Have that conversation. Make sure you follow these steps. And if your case is outside of processing, be patient. Practice patience, because it's going to be a long haul no matter what. Hopefully your case goes through smoothly without a hitch. But if it doesn't, we're here to help fight for you. Thanks so much.